Hi, this is Roger Moore, and you're listening to James Bond Radio.
Hello, and welcome to James Bond Radio. We have a threesome of JBR agents this week. We have myself, Mr. Tom Sears. We are joined by Agent Brian Dobson. Say hello, Brian.
Hello, Brian.
And we have Agent Dan Gale. Say hello, Dan.
Hello, Dan. That's always going to... No, that is always going to be the way that you introduce people on here because of that. So, you know.
Indeed it is. Anyway, moving swiftly on. Today, what are we talking about? We're talking about Secret Cinema, aren't we? We're talking about that experience. Now, we had an embargo on us whereby we weren't allowed to speak any of the secrets because, after all, it is Secret Cinema. And while the show was running, we weren't allowed to say anything about what happens inside, other than general kind of like glossing it over because you didn't want to ruin it for anybody. But now, obviously, the run has come to an end, and it's a free for all on the Secret Cinema Casino Royale. Now, Dan, you came with me the first time I went. That was it. As David Zaritsky hooked us up with that. It was an influencer event, so it was some other faces from the world of Bond fandom with various websites and blogs and all the rest of it and YouTube channels.
Right.
And then the second time I went back was with the JBR family, which is when Brian was there. And Brian, you went a second time after that as well, didn't you?
I did indeed. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah,
that was an interesting one.
So we're going to explore a little bit about all of our experiences because I feel like with Secret Cinema, you could go 10 times in a row and have a completely different experience every time. And what I also find very exciting as well is that everybody you would speak to that night did something different. And there was such a huge amount of excited chatter afterwards of like what happened to the various people and the characters they kind of came into contact with and all the rest of it. So we're gonna go deep on what happened to all of us in there, because I remember, Dan, with you, I barely saw you all night. We went in there together, and then within about 10 minutes you disappeared and you were off doing your missions, and I didn't see you again until the end. So I want to know exactly what happened to you. I remember there was an incident with a phone box that you got involved with that led you down a particular path.
Yeah.
And I've got some confessions to make as well, which I feel very, very bad about. And Brian, I know one particular adventure with the first class lounge for you had me in stitches, so I'm excited to hear about that. So let's have a little bit of JBR theme tune, and then we'll get cracking.
My name's Bond. James Bond. Bond.
James.
Bond, what do you think you're doing?
Keeping the British end up, sir.
Welcome to James Bond Radio. News, reviews, and discussion of all things 007.
Pussy.
As you can see, I have no problem with female authority.
Oh, pipe down, 007.
Do you expect me to talk?
No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
All right, so I'm going to start with you, Brian Dobson. What was your thoughts before you went in, before the big day? What was your conception of what Secret Cinema is?
I didn't have one. I really didn't know what to expect. I try to research it as much as I could, but by the very nature Secret Cinema, it wasn't giving much away. I was a bit perplexed, really, about the whole thing. Obviously, I knew it was going to be interactive, but to what degree, I don't know. So I was probably, I would say, a little bit puzzled by the whole thing, to be honest.
You'd heard of it before, then, as a brand?
I've heard of it before, but not. I hadn't experienced it before, certainly, and I didn't really know enough about it to really understand the concept. I did the research on it, so I understood the previous entries that they had, but it was a bit of a mystery for me, that one, for sure.
Okay. Yeah. What about you, Dan? What was your idea of what Secret Cinema actually was?
I didn't know anything about it other than, like Brian, I'd heard of previous events that they'd held. I listened to a film podcast that Kermode and Mayo do, and they always count down the top 10 box office every week. And occasionally, The Empire Strikes Back was appearing for weeks and weeks on end, or Back to the Future was, and they would say, "Oh, that's Secret Cinema, so we won't review that," and then they'd move on, and that made me think, what is this, and why is it bringing these films back into the box office top 10? Why is it suddenly making so much money? Why can't I go and see it? It's in a very specific place, and that added to the whole secret sort of aura about the whole thing.
Yeah.
So when I heard that there was going to be a Bond one, that's perfect. You can't get any more secret than a secret agent, right? So yeah.
So basically, to anybody that didn't go, you got a few emails in the run up saying that there was this thing called Operation Wildcard, and that you had to choose an alias and a sort of a backstory. So I had my two alii, if that is the correct term, for my two visits. The first time I was a tech entrepreneur called Johnny Bamber, and I thought that's my little tribute to Terry Bamber, because he was so kind to JBR, being a guest and coming on interviewing back in the day. So I thought, I'm going to go as a Bamber. And then when I was there, I bumped into Joe Darlington from Being James Bond. And I said, "What's your name?" And I can't remember what his last name was, but his first name was Jericho. It was Jericho something. All the initials were JB, basically.
I had a Jericho, yes.
And I was like, "Oh, that's cool, man. I wish I'd have gone a bit more balls out and like gone crazy." So when I went back the second time, I was Jericho Blythe.
Oh, nice.
And, I was very excited about that. So Brian, what were your aliases, or whatever the term is?
I was Jacques Benton from I was the software CEO of a company called Warp Drive Communications. I had a little bit of a little bit of Trek come Bond crossover going on there. Nice. And got all the business cards done up, and it was good to go. I actually used the same alias when I went again, but it was good to actually go in under a different cover name for sure.
Very nice. And what about you, Dan?
I was Jericho Barker, and I can't remember what I did for a living, because I didn't play up the image, the whole character that you're supposed to play up anywhere near as much as I should have. I just thought, oh, that's some silly gimmick. But I didn't realize once you get in there, having that kind of character that you can hide behind really does help, because the people that you're interacting with that work for the Secret Cinema, they're doing exactly the same thing. They are actors, but they are pretending to be someone else, and they are always in character, and they don't break it. So if you're in character as well, that adds to the experience. I didn't realize that really until maybe halfway through.
Yeah, I think you get the most out of it when you really throw yourself into it, don't you? And if you go in there being a bit shy and timid and you don't want to talk to anybody, then you're sort of going to be on the periphery a little bit. But I think if you just sort of throw caution to the wind and just jump in head first and be in the world, then I think you get the most out of it.
When I saw that, the initials were JB, I thought, shall I go Javier Bardem? But I thought, oh, that's a little bit too on the nose.
That's good.
Very nice. That is good.
Did it allow you to change? I think there was like a drop-down menu of the certain names that you could have.
Yeah, there was just a certain amount you could choose from, I think. So.
Right. Yeah. That would have been good. It had that been there, that would have been very good. So do you need to explain what the whole thing was to people who never went? And first of all, should we ask, is it ever going to come back again? And are we spoiling it for people if it ever comes back?
I don't know. I can't see. I think if it comes back, it'll be a different Bond experience. You know, I think maybe they might take it to abroad, to different locations. And I assumed it would be America, but it isn't. I think they're going to take it to somewhere else, wherever that is. I can't remember. But
so they don't mind us talking about it.
I hope not. Otherwise, this might be a very short-lived episode. But it's if you don't want to be spoiled on the off chance that it does crop up, then probably don't listen to this episode. But we'll chat about it anyway. So essentially, you're given the barest of instructions. It says go to a Dagenham East tube station and meet your contact, because when you choose your character name, you're also given a department that you were from. So on the first time, we were in Gold Squadron, which is like the control group. The second time, I was in the Teal group, which I forget which department that was now, but it was communications or something like that. And there'd be somebody standing outside the train station holding a bunch of flowers in that color, and you would have to go and meet them as your contact, and they would give you further instructions.
Wow.
So we did that, and they basically say, "Oh, go over there," and that's where it starts. So it was in Dagenham at this old film studios that I believe the backstory was it was a film studios that got some funding, got built, and then essentially the money ran out or something, or some deal fell through, and it's basically just this huge abandoned space now doing nothing. So that's where it was. So you walk up the road, and then you go through this little security checkpoint, and there's a red carpet going all the way up to the entrance of the casino, and there's a big sign there saying Casino Royale. And there's kind of music playing, and everybody's milling around all suited and booted. Everybody's in bow ties and ball gowns and all the rest of it. And then when you get to the front of the casino, there was another contact there wearing your colors, and they would give you your mission. And so the idea behind it is you had to find a character inside the casino and obtain their business card, right? And then once you found that business card, you had to take it to a specific person. And depending on what team you were on, would be a different person's business card and a different person you had to take it to. So my target of the evening was a Monique Delacroix, which I believe is Bond's mum, isn't it? Isn't that Monique Delacroix?
I never noticed that. Yes, you're right.
Yeah, and I had to get her business card and then take it to Q Branch, right? And that's basically all you're told. So that was the sort of the setting of it, and then you get ushered into the casino, and then the whole kind of experience starts. So what you got the same mission as me, Dan, didn't you? Because we were on the same team. Right?
But I'd never noticed that name. That tells you an awful lot about how nerdy this whole adventure is, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. Yeah, that's some attention to detail, I think.
Yeah, there was a lot of that all throughout the entire event. There was a lot of attention to detail. We'll go into that in a minute.
So, Brian, what was your team you were on? What color were you?
It was the red team, but I don't remember now the actual contact that we had to trace. I do remember it being very quick. I do remember the contact talking extremely quickly, and I had to kind of almost play it back in my head what she was saying, because obviously done for a reason.
Yeah, I have to confess that I would make the shittest 00 in the history of 00s, because the amount of times the lady told me my mission, and the amount of times I went, hold on a minute, say the first bit again, and it took me ages to kind of be like, okay, Monique Delacroix, and I had a situation inside that I just giggle at myself because I was so fucking stupid that I got something wrong once I got in there, which I'll tell you about when the time comes. But yeah, so from there, then you get ushered in. You got these stairs, and we're all ushered into this room, and it's like there's a little stage in there, and a lady's sort of welcoming everybody in. She's all dressed up in her finery, and basically there's a prize drawer. She says, "Okay, put your business cards in the pot, and people are going to win a prize." So, they call out one name, somebody goes, "Yay!" and they go up on stage, and they get given a prize, and then they come back, and then this one guy gets up on the stage, and they're having a little chat or whatever, and she's like, "Oh, what are you here for this evening?" And he's like, "I'm here to meet somebody," and they have a little bit of a flirt on stage. Then all of a sudden, so you think that's just another person, just like you. All of a sudden, you hear 2 gunshots, and that guy drops dead on the stage, and then the security swarm in, and they're like, "Move, everybody out!" And then these doors open, and you're pushed into the middle of where, Dan Gale?
It was kind of like, I suppose it's kind of like the Crystal Maze, in that there are little zones, and the first zone you get to was it was like a sort of market area in, I guess it was in Madagascar.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's all areas from different parts of the film which they've recreated.
Absolutely. Yeah. Do you know what? That never occurred to me. It is like the Crystal Maze, isn't it? It's very much like the Crystal Maze. I guess the most of our American brothers and sisters wouldn't know this show, but that was a TV show back in the day where you would go into this kind of like, you go into different rooms and there'd be different challenges, and there were different styles of. Google the Crystal Maze, and
it's still going. It's still going.
Is it still going?
Rich Wiley hosts it, and they brought it back a couple of years ago, and it's better than ever.
Oh, very nice. That pleases me. Anyway, so you come through and you're in Madagascar, and you've got the little sort of fighting pit where they had the mongoose in the film, and there's people sort of playing drums and all the rest of it, and it was that was the sort of moment where I was like, holy shit, this is cool,
Yeah.
So what was like when you first went through that door? What was your first? What were you feeling, Brian Dobson? I'll go with you first, mate.
Well, as I entered, the very first person that I saw rush past was Malaka, with the backpack on, and that was literally the first thing I saw when I went in, and I thought, "Whoa, this is going to be so detailed beyond my imagination." And I think I just looked around, tried to take it all in, but it was so much to take in. That it was this, as Dan's just said, crystal maze. It was kind of, I'm going to have to take this section by section, but just sort of absorbing the atmosphere, really.
Yeah, because at that stage, I still didn't really know what this thing was. I was exactly the same as you, Brian. I didn't know what we were supposed to do in there, and they always said like the less you know going in, the better. Yeah. So I remember going in there and seeing this dude walk past, and I was like, "Oh, look, that guy's come dressed up as Felix Leiter. He looks real well like him." And then I was like, "Oh no, that actually is Felix. That's fucking cool, man."
Yeah.
And then I had a moment where the penny dropped, and I'm like, "Oh, now I get what this is." And then there was just this beautiful moment where, like, when I say, obviously it wasn't Jeffrey Wright walking past, but it was a dude who looked exactly like Jeffrey Wright.
Yeah.
And then you sort of realize that a lot of these, basically the code of the day was any customers, as we all were instructed to just wear black or white, or black and white, with one shot of color of what team you're in. So, you might have like a little carnation in the color of your team, or, a little pocket square. But then so you realize that everybody who's not dressed in black and white is an actor that's in it. So you're absorbed into the world. And when you see a dude walk past who looks like Felix Leiter, that is a dude playing Felix Leiter. So you can go and chat to him, and he might give you a mission or something. And it was like, this is like everything I've always dreamed of as a child. Like, this is amazing. And so interesting, because I didn't see Malaka, Brian. I didn't see him till a lot later on. But Felix was the first person who I saw when I went in, and I was like, holy shit. What about you, Dan? What was your thoughts as you went in?
Exactly that. I saw Felix go past, and I thought it was someone, a guest that had been brought along who thought, I'm going to, go dressed a bit of role play, bit of cosplay. They dressed up. But then you realize that he's acting, and he's looking with Shifty, and he's walking around, and he's just part of the furniture. You have to go up to them and you have to ask them questions. It may not lead you where you want to go. It might lead you off in a completely different direction, but it's part of the scenario within that zone is that you have to interact with people. If it's the next zone on was an airport lounge, and you could go and ask the information desk for people for information. They might be able to help you and send you somewhere else. The very first thing I did was pick up a phone off the wall, because it was ringing and no one was answering it. And I thought, okay, I'll answer this. What's going on? And it said, you should go to the airport lounge and go to the information desk and ask about Delacroix. And that's where it took me.
That's a beautiful thing.
And
so
I remember hanging up. I hung up, and then I saw you, and I turned around and I said, "This is so cool." that was when it hit me. Yeah. I see what we're doing now. They haven't just recreated stuff for a laugh. You're meant to interact with it. And then as soon as I realized that, I thought, okay, I get it now. I'm going to enjoy this.
There was definitely a penny drop moment, wasn't there, where it's like, oh fuck, okay, I see what I'm meant to be doing here. Yeah. Talking about that. Hunting Monique Delacroix, right? So the first time I went, I didn't really know what was happening. I was just sort of learning the ropes of it. And I did a lot of wandering around. I visited all the different zones. There was like a Q branch. There was Venice. There was, MI6 headquarters that you'd go to. And I'm just basically wandering around being like, oh, that's cool. This is cool. The second time, I kind of obviously went in knowing half what to expect. And I thought, this time I'm going to play it a lot differently. And so as everybody's coming into Madagascar, I thought, right, I'm gonna basically what they say is you need to hunt down Monique Delacroix, get her business card. She was last seen in Venice. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go straight to Venice. I'm going to get that business card. So I make a beeline to Venice while everybody's still over here in Madagascar, and I thought I'm gonna be like the first one through the gate. I'm gonna win this. And so I get to Venice. I'm walking around Venice. I don't see anybody remotely resembling anybody that I should be talking to. And then all of a sudden, Getler walks in. Right, he's got his eye patch on and his hat, and I was like, okay, here we go. So I get my business card out, and I was like, pleased to meet you. I'm Jericho Blythe. I work for Blythe Industries. I don't suppose you know anybody called Margot Delacroix, do you? And he looks at the business card and looks at me and he goes, no, I don't know a Margot Delacroix. I do know a Monique Delacroix, though. I don't know if that's who you're looking for. And I was like, Tommy, you fucking dickhead. Like, get the name right of all things. Jesus Christ. But yeah, so there was all those kinds of interactions. And I remember, Brian, when we were there together, and I was hanging out in Venice on a completely different mission. And I remember turning around and seeing you walk in, and you were white dinner jacket, the whole shebang. And you had one hand in your pocket, and if your eyebrow could have been any further up your forehead, you were so in the zone, man. It was like eyebrow walking through. You were so in the zone. It was such a beautiful moment. I remember turning around and just bursting out laughing because I could see how in the zone you were. It was such a beautiful thing, man. It was great. Yeah, I loved it.
Yeah, I remember that so well because I think I went to the one of the MI6 rooms and there was some kind of interrogation going on, and I was trying to take it all in, and I suddenly thought, if I go too detailed, I'm not really going to see the bigger picture of this. So maybe I should actually just wander around the rooms and get my bearings and actually try and see, get more of an overview of what's going on. So I'm strutting around, as you say, in the ivory dinner jacket, and it was just it was a surreal moment of kind of just trying to take it all in. And I actually heard somebody say, "Oh, he's part of it. He's obviously he's part of it." And I was just kind of wandering from room to room, just trying to get a little bit more of an overview, really. But it was surreal.
That was a beautiful thing. So Dan, then what happened to you, man? So you pick up the phone, they tell you got to go to Miami Airport, and where did that take you? Because literally, so for anybody that doesn't know, you have basically 2 hours in the world, and it's meant to essentially a prequel to the film itself that you exist in. And then there's a screening of the actual film with extra stuff that happens. So it's kind of like, there'll be a scene happening on screen, and, say it's the embassy scene or whatever, where all the dudes with the guns pointed at Bond. You'll have actors on stage, and you'll have Bond on stage doing that at the same time as it is on screen. So it's quite a strange experience. It's not just watching the film. There's extra stuff happening as well. So what happened to you, man? You pick up that phone, you went off on an adventure, and I didn't see you until the screening started. So where did you go? What happened?
I went to the reception at the information desk at the Miami International Airport. I couldn't remember Monique's first name, and I said, "I'm looking for somebody. I can't remember her name. Maybe you can help me." And she said, "Well, that doesn't really help at all. There's a couple of people here that it might be." And she started reeling off some names, and then eventually she said Monique Delacroix. And it was only just then, when you told me that it was Bond's mum, I went, "Oh, of course it is." So I said, yeah, that's her. Yeah, tell me all about her. And all the time thinking, well, I failed my audition for this part. There's no way I'm going to get beyond this. And she said, ultimately, you have to go to there's a plaza, a Venetian plaza. You have to meet up with a certain bloke. So I ran off there, and you were also given some fake money. You're given, maybe, is it $2,500 fake dollars?
That's right. Yeah.
Which you can spend however you like in that fictional world. And I think Tom may have spent it differently to how I spent it.
I went to the local brothel and just went straight in. All out.
I didn't really like that. But there was what the guy said. The bloke that I met was a bloke. He looked a bit like he was wearing a big Panama hat and a sort of cream suit. And I remember him looking like somebody from Raiders of the Lost Ark. And
Oh, that's Gettler. That's the dude I spoke
he
to.
didn't have the eye patch.
Didn't have the eye
I'm
patch.
sure he didn't have the eye patch. No, he
Oh,
kind of reminded me a little bit of Peter Ustinov.
all right. Okay.
I don't know who he was or who he was supposed to be in the film.
Let me Google Peter Ustinov because I don't know who Peter Ustinov is.
Poirot from Death on the Nile, and
oh yes. Okay, go on then. Sorry, carry on.
He gave me the information I needed, but it cost me $500. And I think, he sent me to Q Branch, I think, ultimately. But at this point, I met up with Mark O'Connell, who I hadn't ever really spoken to before. We had emailed a lot and spoken on Twitter. And that got in the way of the whole mission thing because we were, just chatting. And ultimately, we wandered into Q Branch and interacted with the dude behind the glass. There was a bloke who was giving a demonstration of things in Q Branch. And that led us to go and see Vesper. But the Q Branch thing was astonishing because there was so much detail in the props, which I was really impressed by. There were things, oh man, I can't remember what the hell they were. There were things on the shelf in the background that were clearly props from the films. And even if you went up close to the some of the crates, they had tiny little barcodes printed on them, and it would say, property of MI6 written underneath in tiny letters. So that the smallest detail was paid attention to, which was wonderful. But I can't remember what those props were. There was something in particular. It was something from GoldenEye. I'm sure of it. Do you remember what that was?
Was it the limpet mines? I think I remember seeing the limpet mines.
It could have been. Yes, it was something on the shelf in the background, and Mark went, "Look, I recognise that." So, and from that point on, once we'd met up with Vesper, who was that was a scary moment because the lady who was playing Vesper was hypnotically beautiful, and I just froze as she was talking to me. We had to get some information out of her, and she's twice as tall as I was. She sort of loomed over me, and I got the information I needed, and then she walked off, and then as she walked out of the room, I went, "Oh, stay out of the lift," and then I walked off. I don't know if she heard me. And then that was it. We didn't really. We ended up just chatting and wandering around and not really doing the mission any further than that after that. But so I didn't get very far. So I'm intrigued to know, how far does it go? What do you achieve?
Yeah, well, so when I went the day we went, obviously you didn't get into London till later, but they did for all of this sort of social media types. They did this little sort of presentation for us where we met with two of the producers and could ask them questions and all the rest of it. And they were saying there were something like 40 different plot lines that you could get involved with.
Wow.
And they would all kind of sort of intermingle and meet at the end, basically. So you didn't manage to get the business card? You failed in your mission, did you?
I don't think I did. No.
Yeah. I failed in my mission both times. I still have no idea how one would get that business card. But what about you, Brian? What did you get involved with?
You got it with you there. Can you just pull it?
I think on the first goal, I went round. It's exactly what I just said. Is I kind of decided just to go around room to room and kind of just find out what was going on. I think I probably did a little bit too much of that because it disconnected me a little bit from really getting involved because I was so busy trying to see what actually this was all about that I kind of lost focus about really what the mission was or what I really should be doing. And then I managed to find myself a rather tall vodka martini, and then I got lost in the moment a little bit. So and then I believe I had another, and then it just became a little bit more hazy. But I definitely didn't complete the mission. Definitely not, because I think I was just so taken aback by the sets and the attention to detail and the characters that I lost focus a bit about what the whole mission was supposed to be about.
Yeah, I don't think that's easily done.
There's no wrong or right way of having this experience. As you said, there's 40 odd plot lines, so each time you go back, it's going to be different. Yeah. But if you want to just sort of absorb it all and not actually do any of it, that's fine too, because there's food to eat, and there's the bar serving genuine vodka martinis, and there is so much. There was there was things to gamble on with your fake money as well. There was a fight between a mongoose and a cobra, I assume. I didn't actually see that, but there was 2 boxes representing a mongoose and a cobra, which I think you could bet on. Did anyone see that part?
Well, I don't
I
think
saw,
I did.
yeah, I saw a bit of it. There's some very muscular dudes that were sort of like jumping about over there. I didn't know whether in this world it became like a fight, like a wrestling match or something. Because like how would you do the mongoose and the snake thing? You know what I mean? So yeah, I didn't actually engage with that part, but I saw some stuff going on there.
Yeah.
Yeah, but one of the most incredible things for me is seeing the characters walking around and being a part of the world. So I remember seeing this blonde lady come out of one of the rooms, and I was like, she looks a bit like Le Chiffre's missus. And I'm like, oh, it is Le Chiffre's missus, basically. She had exactly the same dress on, the tattoo on the back and all the rest of it. Right. There was Demetrios was there. He was hanging out. And like there was just all these little characters. I remember going up to MI6 and seeing M. She was sitting there, this lady that just looked like very reminiscent of Judi Dench.
That's right.
Obviously, there was Felix. There was Vesper walking around. Solange was walking around.
Yes.
Was there? Mr. White was there.
Well,
there was Getler.
There was a certain dude in the casino, if you remember.
Le Chiffre was there, indeed.
Yeah.
Let me tell you a story about Le Chiffre, man. Right. So this is the first time, the night we were there, Dan. I was hanging out with David Zaritsky. We were walking around, like just giggling at things and being children. And David's like, I've been told something. I just want to try it out. So I was like, all right. He's like, tag along. So I'm hanging out with David, and he goes up. There was basically a sort of curtained doorway, right, with the security guy in front of the doorway. And Zaritsky goes up, and he gets like a wad of notes out and says, I'm interested in joining the game at the casino tonight. Can you let me know how I do that? And the guy pockets the money, and he goes, see the guy in the green suit over there? Go and talk to him. He'll help you out. So we're like, all right. So we go and talk to the guy in the green suit. David goes, I want to join the game at the casino tonight. And he looks around and he goes, all right, keep this on the down low, but I'm working for MI6, okay? If you can promise me you're a good poker player, I'll front you the money and you can get in and join the game. So David goes, yep, I'm a great poker player. Yeah, I'll do it. Yep, that's great. So he brings out like the buy-in was I think it was like $25,000 or something. And like you say, you get given like 2 or 3 when you enter. So he gives David a wad of cash and then ushers us back through this curtain. So I go in with David, and then we go into this big circular room with the casino table in the middle and like some hoodlums kind of hanging around. I'm like, holy fuck. And there's like nobody else in there. There's like a handful of other people in there. And we're sort of like looking at each other, giggling a little bit. And then we go up to the table and then we're like, you'd like to join the game? Yes, I'd like to buy in. Here's the money, blah, blah, blah. So they usher David up to a seat. I was like David's bodyguard. I was like Vargas or somebody like that.
Yeah.
And so I'm still behind, and then we're like, so what happens now? Like we still didn't really know. And then all of a sudden, door opens, in walks Le Chiffre, and he's got the scar over the eye and all the rest of it. And he sits down right next to David. And I'm like, we're basically going, fuck, look, it's Le Chiffre, look, it's Le Chiffre, he's right there. And he had the details of Le Chiffre down perfectly. Like the outfit was spot on. And he had, you know how in the film Le Chiffre kind of has the casino chips and he's like flicking them around in his hands as they're playing?
Yeah.
Like he had that mannerism down to a T. And then David's like, do you want to sit in the chair? Because I'm not sure I know how to play poker that well. And I'm like, I don't know how to play poker either. He's like, no, go on, you sit down. I'm like, no, but I'm going to make a fucking fool of myself if I sit down because I don't know what I'm doing. And he's like, oh shit. So he kind of blagged his way through it, which is a beautiful moment. But yeah, we had this moment, man, where there was probably 7 of us in this huge room going head to head with Le Chiffre at the casino table. It was a beautiful moment. And it was one of those things where you just, how do you know that's going on? You know, how do you know to ask that dude? And it was just this little hidden storyline that
that's your reward for having the guts to get into character enough to go and bribe a guard. Because I saw that area and thought, oh, they've masked that off. That's where the screening's taking place later on. It's just not open yet, so I didn't go anywhere near it.
Yeah,
but
that's it.
That's how much how sort of low level the detail is. High level the detail is.
Absolutely.
There's nothing you can't interact with, and everybody is there for a reason. And I'd love to do it again. Damn, I just want to do it again now.
Well, that's it. So we after we hung outside, didn't we, Dan? We interviewed a few people. You got your camera out, and we were chatting to people about their experience. And if anybody listening watched the video we made when we were chatting to David, we were he mentions, he was like, Tom had an opportunity and he missed it up. That was the opportunity I missed up because I couldn't sit I didn't know how to fucking play poker, so I didn't want to completely humiliate myself. But that was the opportunity that I missed.
It's probably a good thing you didn't do it, because you'd have been dead by now if you tried to play him.
That's probably true. Yeah.
If
he'd drugged my drink or something. Yeah. Can you imagine?
And then you'd have to run around pretending to have a heart attack, pretending to try and find a defibrillator somewhere, which there probably was if we looked hard enough. There probably would have been.
Absolutely, completely. But Brian, so you said the first time you went, you were just wandering around, gliding about, taking it all in, and you went a second time as well. And you told me you had a better time the second time because you got a bit more involved with the story. So what happened to you that next time?
Yeah, well, I think the second time we managed to find so many characters. I had a conversation with Dimitrios, with the Sheaf, and we basically sort of managed to get into that organisation. But I ended up kind of almost working for the other side, to be honest. It got a little bit, but that was much more interactive because I just thought to myself, I understand what it's about now. Let's just throw myself a little bit more into it. And myself, I went with Warren Ringham, I went with Sam Allen, and the three of us just kind of, we each said we'll do a little bit of talking and spiel to try and get the characters to open up a little bit. And we managed to get much further into the game for sure. But I think that the funniest kind of moment I had really was on the first time. I obviously we had the cash, and then I went to the Virgin Gold Lounge, I think it was, and I spotted a bit more of food and drink there, and I thought, I'd like to sort of I wanted really to experience all the different rooms. So I wasn't really bothered. Yeah, of course I wanted to complete the mission, but as time went on, that became less of a priority, and I just thought, I just want to go into each room and see what it's all about. Yeah. So then I got to the Gold Lounge, and I thought, I'm gonna go in here. So approaches the front, and the guy says, I'm sorry, sir, Gold members only. And I said, oh, right, okay. So I tried to carry on through it. He said, I'm sorry, I did say Gold members only. And so I pulled out my card and I said, do you realise who I am? I'm Jacques Benton. And popped the card into his into his hand, and he says, "I'm sure you are, but I'm afraid without a gold membership, you can't come any further." So then I pulled out $500, wrapped it up, put it into his lapel pocket, and just said, "Let's just pretend we didn't have this conversation, shall we?" And incredibly, he let me in.
That's beautiful.
See, that is a moment from the films come to life.
Completely.
That's what this allows you to do. It allows you to be a suave wanker for a couple of hours, and you're allowed to do it
completely.
If you tried to do that in real life, you just wouldn't get away with it.
Yeah, completely.
And you're sort of encouraged to do that for this.
Yeah, he actually looked at the money and looked at it in disgust, but grabbed it anyway and said, "Go on, get yourself in."
That was your that'll keep you in curry for a few weeks.
Absolutely.
Very nice.
Yeah, that was definitely a highlight.
So what rooms were there? Because I saw, I definitely saw, I saw the airport and Madagascar and Q Branch, and I saw a toilet. Did you see the toilet with the urinals and the smashed up?
Yeah.
And Judi Dench was in there. Judi Dench. It wasn't Judi Dench, but it was the M lookalike was in there, and she was doing something. I don't know what it was, because it seemed to be in mid flow as we went in there. So we thought, okay, we missed the beginning of this. It doesn't make any sense. So we left again.
Yeah.
And then we saw the plaza, the Venetian Plaza. We saw the casino and the bar that you talked about. But there must have been other places that I didn't see.
So if I, off the top of my head, when we went in, you were in Madagascar. There was the card game from the Bahamas was right next to that. And I didn't go there either time I saw it, but I never had cause to actually go there.
Yeah.
That was right next to it. So then as you walk through, that became Miami Airport. And then the casino was just kind of off of there. Ahead and to the left of that was Venice. Past that, beyond that was Q Branch. And then upstairs, what did they have upstairs? Upstairs was MI6.
Yeah.
What else did they have up there? I feel like there was
That's
something
where
else.
the bar was as well, wasn't there? There was
Yeah.
the bar and also an actual. I mean, I think the bar was a set, but there was also an actual bar where you could order actual drinks as well.
Yeah.
And I'm sure the toilets, the sort of pre-title sequence toilets, it's a huge white room. With just smashed up porcelain on the floor.
That was it. They recreated that room where the fight had happened. I remember walking past there and there was a body bag on the floor with a body in it. I don't know whether you saw that. And then there was another time I walked past and the body bag was being carried out.
Okay.
So yeah, it's the beautiful thing about it is you would be a different experience every time you went.
Yeah.
Because wherever you were at a certain time, something different's going to be happening. So even if you just wandered about, if you wandered about in a different order, you're going to experience different things. So here's what happened to me the second time, right? I thought, second time, I'm going to go in. Now I know what to expect. I'm going to complete that mission. I'm going to get that business card. So like I say, I made a beeline to Venice, chatted to Getler, got the name wrong like a dickhead and humiliated myself. There was, do you remember there was that next to Venice, there was that little window you looked through and there was the dude, there was like a little poker game going on in there. And there was the dude from the film with like the long white hair, like the Asian fella with the white hair.
Okay, no, I didn't see.
Yeah, I forget what his character name is now, but he was in there playing the game. So I joined that to begin with. And I thought, because the second time I'd kind of learned my basics of poker. I've got to be able to, if I get to face off with the sheep this time, I need to know what I'm doing. So I kind of learned the basics and I went in there for a little test run and played a couple of hands of poker.
Did you beat him?
No, I didn't. I lost every hand, shamefully. But yeah, so I came out and I thought, okay, I'm gonna lock in with one of these stories, and I ended up chatting to Getler some more, and essentially he's like, "Let me introduce you to my friend." He leads me down a back alley where I saw you, Brian, when you were super in character. He leads me down a back alley, and who's waiting down there but Mr. White? And Mr. White says, my friend Getler tells me you are interested in joining our organization. And I was like, yeah, I'm up for that. And I thought, in the back of my mind, I'm like, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to join Spectre and I'm going to go deep cover and then I'm going to ruin their plans at the last minute.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, I'd join Spectre. Yeah. He's like, you sure? You can be trusted? I'm like, absolutely, mate. I can be trusted 100%. It's like, okay, these MI6 people, we know about Operation Wildcard. We know it's going on. We have people everywhere. He literally said that. And these idiot MI6 people, they're not going to win because we're too clever. So he's like, let me introduce you to a friend of mine. So he leads me down another back alleyway and introduces me to brain fart. What's his name? Vesper's boyfriend. End of Quantum. That dude.
Yes.
I forgot myself.
Jesus, how come we all have a brain fart all at the same time? You know who I mean. Vesper's boyfriend, right? Gives her the necklace. He introduces me to her and he tells me his whole backstory. And he's like, so listen, I've been going deep cover. I've got in with this operative at MI6, Vesper Lind, blah, blah, blah. I've got her under my thumb. She's I forget the term he used now, but he's like, she's usable, basically. He's like, you need to basically call her up now and deliver this message. Are you up for delivering the message? So I'm like, yeah, all right, I'll deliver the message. But by this point, 2 other people have joined me, and there's 3 of us all sort of joining Spectre at the same time. So he gives us these sheets of paper. That's basically.
Spectre, I hope. Did you?
What's that?
You didn't call it Spectre at the time, I hope, because it was Quantum then.
No, of course not. So he basically gives us this demand that we're supposed to read out to Vesper. So basically, he picks up the phone, and the dude next to me had to go, "Hello, I'd like to speak to Miss Vesper Lynn, please." And then he had to pass the phone to this girl that he was with, and she had to read a line out. She'd pass it to me, and I'd read a line out. And it was basically, you need to bring a suitcase with $50,000 in it to Vienna, otherwise, there's going to be trouble. So I put the phone down, and instantly I'm like, "Fucking hell, man! I don't." There's a problem with Secret Cinema in that there's a serious like FOMO thing, whereby when you lock in with a storyline, you're like, "Do I really want to do this storyline, or do I want to go and try and find a different one?" And I, to this day, feel terrible about this. After we put the phone call, he's like, "Right, okay, she's on her way. I've got to disappear, so she doesn't know." He buggers off and disappears and leaves us alone in this thing. Gettler shows up with Mr. White all of a sudden. Vesper shows up carrying a briefcase with $50,000 cash in it, and she's shaking. Right, she's terrified. But Gettler and Mr. White have her up against the wall, and they're being like, "Give us the money. You're gonna you've got to work for us now. Otherwise, everybody you've ever known, we're gonna." Yusuf, that's his name.
Oh, of course.
She basically goes, "If you don't, we're going to kill Yusuf. We've got Yusuf. We're going to kill him." And she's shaking and she's like crying, tears running down her face. She's like, "Okay, all right, I'll do whatever you say. I'll do whatever you say." And from that moment, I'm like, "Oh my God, what have I done? What have I done? I've been a part of this." And in my mind, I've got flashes of Vesper drowning in the lift in the film. And I'm like, "This is my fault. This is my fault. I am what has led Vesper to the moment where she kills herself, and now Bond's going to be really upset, and the whole thing is my fault. Fuck, why did I do this?" And then, so all of a sudden, she disappears, and I genuinely feel gutted that I've done this to Vesper. She played it so well, and I'm like, talking about the FOMO thing, I immediately go, "Fuck, man, this wasn't the storyline I should have joined. I should have gone and chatted to Felix and got like a Bond-like mission, because this just doesn't feel right." And so, to this day, when I think of poor little Vesper in the corner, I feel gutted about it. Yeah.
Well, what you just said there, Tom, just totally reminds me of that exact Spectre thing. Because on the second go, I managed to get hold of Lee Schiffer, and I basically had a contact to give him. I can't remember the contact that it was now. I went up to him, I said the contact, and his eyes lit up and said, "Ah, Mr. Benton, it's so good to work with you again. It's been several years." And I said, yes, it has indeed. So then I kind of stuck with him for a little bit, and he seemed to sort of pull me in a little bit. And then he said, "But obviously you have got the finance, haven't you?" And I suddenly thought, so I said, "Well, I'm working on it." And he said, "Working on it's not good enough. I want the money." Yeah. And then I suddenly thought, I don't think I'm going to be able to blag this much further, to be honest. But it's exactly what you just said. That was so.
What did you say to him then? How did you leave it?
I basically said, I'm working on the money, and he says, "Well, when? I need this now." And I said, "Well, I've got contacts. They'll be coming back to me on it." And then I think something else happened, and they ran off to another room, and then everything got dispersed pretty quickly, and then I kind of lost contact with them a little bit. I think it was later on, and it was near when the actual cinema experience itself was about to start. So.
Yeah. It's a hell of a job, really, for an actor, isn't it, getting a role like that? Because the moment there's no script as such, so it's not like you just go on stage and you learn a script and you get to direct. Yeah, you get to be directed, and that this happens at this point on this cue every time, like you would on a stage show. So not only that, but you have to stay in character for 2 hours, and you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what kind of crap you're going to have to deal with, because there are going to be some people that take it far too seriously. They're going to be, and you have to try and settle that situation. If a real fight breaks out or something, you have to. There will be moments where you do have to be in a certain place at a certain time, because you have to be there to be part of whatever it is that people are expecting to see.
Yeah.
Plus you have to be cast because you look exactly like the person that was in the film. So if you do get to be a performer in one of these things, you've really got your work cut out. It's really difficult to not break character and ruin the experience for all the guests.
Yeah, I can
So,
imagine.
and that never happened once. Everybody I saw was 1,000% the character that we saw in the movie later on.
Yeah.
It was
Committed,
really
yeah.
good, really, really good.
Yeah, it's just the mind boggles of how you would conceive of an event like that, but B, the logistics of how that would all work. You know what I mean? Like that moment that I chose to speak to Getler, and he's like, "Well, let me introduce you to my friend," and he introduces me to Mr. White, who then introduces me to Yusuf, who then tells me to make this call and get Vesper to come along. There's that whole chain of events, and all those actors have to be in the right spot at the right time for those three things. And then Vesper shows up with the briefcase. It's like, but what was Vesper doing before that? Like, where she's in the world. It's not like she's waiting backstage and then she just, when that phone call comes through, and she's somewhere else interacting with somebody. So they must all have so many different plot lines running through their head at the same time. Yeah. And when somebody comes up to them and says, I'm looking for this person, it's like, okay, that person, in their mind, they must be like, that person is currently on this thread, so I have to then say this to them. Somebody else then 2 seconds later comes up and gives them something else, a message from another character, and they're like, okay, that person's on that thread, so then I have to tell them. Like, it must be like learning 40 scripts instead of one script.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It just
boggles the mind.
Nightmare, isn't it? Trying to piece that sort of thing together. I suppose it's kind of like those books where you decide what the story is going to be by turning to a certain page. It's been plotted out in that sense. So
do you know what? That's exactly what I said. It was like, I said that on the night. It's like fighting fantasy books or choose your own adventure books done live. You know what I mean? It's like you're controlling the narrative to some extent. And that was a beautiful thing. Do you have like a favorite moment from the night that just really like made you smile, that just lit your fire a little bit?
Brian?
I'm just trying to think. Well, certainly those two moments that I mentioned, the Le Chiffre one and the Virgin Atlantic Gold membership area, that was just surreal. One funny bit, and it's nothing to do with the actual rest of the story as such, but when we're watching the film, I can't even believe I'm saying this, but when we came down to sit watching the film, I didn't realize we were about to watch the entire film. I thought it was an excerpt of it, or something to do with the plot revolving around, the gambling, the table bit, because obviously the table was laid out towards. Yeah. So I thought we're going to see part of the film, and then somebody's going to be interacting at the table. So I was expecting maybe, I don't know, half an hour, 45 minutes of actual film. And then I sat down. I was sitting right on the edge, although we haven't come to the reveal of it yet, but there you go. And I was sitting on the edge, and I was talking to Rory, and we were just chatting about it. And then I saw the whole MGM logo come up, and I looked at him, and he looked at me, and we both said, "Is this the full 2.5 hours of this?" We realised it was, and we sat there, and I thought, I really still want to look at other areas, because as much as I love the film, and I do, I just thought I'd actually rather see different parts of it if I can. So we watched it up until Miami International Airport, and then we decided to make our way out of it and maybe get a few drinks and just have a chat outside. So I walked out, and somebody said, what on earth are you leaving for? And I just looked at the screen, and Daniel was on, and I just said, "Too blonde," and just walked out.
Very nice.
And it was a few people who chuckled, but it was just sort of, the whole thing was surreal. The whole thing was just surreal from start to finish.
Did they allow you to go out and look at other things whilst the film was happening, or had all the acting sort of stopped at that point?
It had all stopped, but you managed to sort of look into the rooms a little bit more without anything else going on, and just try and you almost putting the pieces of the jigsaw together after the event, really. But we ended up just sitting down, having a few more vodka martinis, and imagining the Secret Cinema does Diamonds Are Forever, or The Man with the Golden Gun, or some kind of sort of old school Bond, and just and how that, and how that would have been done.
That was going to be one of my later questions. If they were going to do another one, which films would you like to see?
Yeah, it's a tough one, isn't it?
Obviously, as I said, the whole I'd love to have a go at another one. There was an Empire Strikes Back one. There was Back to the Future, and there's lots of others, and I can't remember them. But there was quite a naughty one as well. There was a film called The Handmaiden, which is I think it's a Korean erotic drama. And I can't even begin to believe what they were doing for the 2 hours leading up to the film. How the hell? How do you get the public involved in that?
Yeah,
I'd love to have at least met with someone who tried it, just to figure out what was going on. So these other films aren't particularly secretive. But the whole Bond thing, it just slots into the reenactment and the secrecy of the whole thing so well that it would be ridiculous if they didn't do another one. But I think it would have to be quite popular just to get people in. They couldn't necessarily do an obscure, if there is such a thing as an obscure Bond film. I think it would have to be Skyfall, really, wouldn't it? It would have to be the big one that has been a big box office success recently.
Yeah, I suppose the world of Bond is like you say, it fits in like hand in glove into what secret cinema is, and it's the concept of everybody going with the dicky bow on and all the rest of it, and the ball gowns and the casino table. That is also like wrapped up in the world of Bond. Casino Royale was absolutely the perfect film to do. I think that is definitely. If you're going to do one and one only, it would have to be Casino Royale. But let's talk about that then. Which one other do you think they could do? Because I feel like Skyfall, that was obviously the biggest seller. That was the biggest film, out of Daniel's run. But what would you do with that? You know what I mean? It's like, in terms of the locations and stuff in Skyfall, is there as much opportunity to be mined for like activities and things that happen in that world? I don't know if there is.
I don't think so. I think it would have to be as much as I think it would have to be like a Fleming-esque espionage type of thing, So what comes to mind is something like From Russia with Love. It's got to be something like something with a little bit of intrigue. I don't know.
I suppose the answer would be is to go to some other secret cinemas in different universes and then see what they do with those. Because I remember a friend said that she had been to quite a few of them, and they'd done a Romeo and Juliet one years ago, of the Leonardo DiCaprio Romeo and Juliet.
That's right. It's one of the first ones.
Yeah, and I'm like, what would you do in that? Like, that's like I say, you go in, there's casino tables, and you sit down. It just makes perfect sense. But like, what was going on in that world, kind of thing? Apparently, the lead actor was like a young Leonardo DiCaprio lookalike in there, and all the rest of it. So they're so good at what they do, man. But like, I suppose for me, like, what are the most visually iconic Bond things? And I feel like you can't. I feel like before Daniel's run, everybody would say that Goldfinger was the iconic Bond film. And I feel like there's some stuff you could do with that. You know what I mean? You could have that setting, like you were saying, with the toilet down. You could have the golden girl on the bed. Some poor girl's just got to lie there all night. Or, you've got Fort Knox. I think I would wager that Goldfinger, no pun intended, would be the richest sort of film to mine of locations and things to do.
Yeah. It would get people in just based on the name as well, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Or You Only Live Twice would have the flavor of it, because you'd have that the wonderful sort of Japanese iconography, and the sets would be beautiful, and obviously there would be a volcano interior at some point, and everyone would have to put on little ninja suits with the balaclavas, and there would be Spectre teams fighting each other. You'd be different. You'd either be a workman in a white overall, or you'd be wearing the sort of orange tabards or something like that. So that could work as well. But I don't know. You're right that one just seems so it was the perfect mix of a recent one that did very well that everyone remembers the name of, and one that that lends itself to that kind of story that you can interact with. I don't know if all the films would do that.
Yeah, yeah.
But then I've never done the others. I don't know how they would do Back to the Future, to be honest, because there's only so much skateboarding you can do.
Yeah, indeed. So I suppose explaining the climax of this one, right? There was a moment where everybody gets shepherded in to that.
Wow.
I was talking about where we played cards with the chief.
I didn't see any of this, so I'd love to know. I could hear it from where I was, but
where were you then? What were you doing?
I was eating. Mark and I were eating something outside in the cafe, and we heard stuff happening. We didn't realize it was the big finale.
Gotcha.
So go on.
We all get shepherded in. Now, the first time I went, David and I are already in that room, and then all of a sudden, everybody just comes pissing in from all the doors and all angles, and we're like, "Oh, all right, fine." Like, no idea what was happening. Then a band starts playing. All of they were kind of miming this, a band of ladies in little mini dresses, looking very fine, and they're kind of playing up on the stage. And then everybody's just kind of milling about and chatting, and there's some stuff going on around the casino table. And then all of a sudden, all hell breaks loose, and basically, Mr. White is up on the stage saying something about a suitcase with $1 million in it. And that we have people everywhere, blah blah blah. Some people run in shooting guns. A rope ladder drops from the ceiling, and there's like this effect that looks like a helicopter's kind of circling above. And somebody's climbing up the rope ladder, shooting back down, and has got I don't know whether they were shooting actually. They were climbing up the rope ladder, and they had the briefcase in their hand. Somebody shoots them. They fall down. The suitcase opens, and all the $1 million falls out everywhere like confetti onto the ground.
Wow.
Right? And I'm stood there and I'm like, what is all this about? Like $1 million suitcase? What on earth are you talking about? I've got no idea. Right. And then the whole wall behind the casino table raises up. It's a big curtain. And behind is all the seats. And then and then the screen itself was actually hidden up in the ceiling. It was there the whole night. You just notice it. That lowers down, and then that room becomes the cinema room. Right.
Right.
So you're like, that's cool. And then you go and sit down and then watch the film. Now, the second time I went, I wasn't in the casino room. I was off doing other things, right? My plan was I was going to face off against Le Chiffre again. I was going to sit in Bond's chair directly opposite Le Chiffre. I was going to take Le Chiffre to the cleaners. That was what my plan was. As luck would have it, I never ended up getting in the casino room. I was on a whole different thread. I was just sitting in the shower feeling bad about so this time, as I'm doing that, as I locked in with that storyline of joining Spectre, Gettler was telling us everything that was happening, and he was saying that basically on the way to the casino at that present moment was a suitcase with, I think it was $10 million in it or something. It might have been $100 million. It's a suitcase with a crazy amount of money in anyway. And
$100 million. Yes.
And as a security precaution, there were actually 10 suitcases on the way, and only one of them had the money in, right?
Oh, wow.
And a lot of these missions were basically trying to identify what the suitcase was, right? Which suitcase had the real money in it. So do you remember in the airport, there was the conveyor belt, the baggage conveyor belt. There was one point where Gettler took me to that conveyor belt and picked up a suitcase off of that trolley. And I forget what he did with it now. I think he took it away and gave it to somebody else. But so that was the story, right? But the MI6 were trying to intercept that money and this whole thing. That was like what the Operation Wildcard was. So because I didn't lock in with that storyline the first time, and that was the payoff. They'd found the suitcase, and then there was this big gunfight, and the money all fell down and all the rest of it. And there's Mr. White on stage saying, $10 million, that was the suitcase, blah, blah, blah. I had no idea what any of that was all about. I was completely confuddled. I'm like, what's this all about? Then as I'm going through it the second time, I'm like, oh, that's what they were talking about in the finale last time. Now it makes sense. Now I get the mission, which leads me on to an issue with Secret Cinema that I think is it totally depends. Whether you have fun or not depends on you and you alone, in the sense that I think it would be easy to go to Secret Cinema and have a terrible time. Mm-hmm. If you didn't lock in and do the whole I'm in character thing. I'm Jericho Blythe and I'm a tech industrialist from wherever, you know what I mean? And really locking in with those characters. And like you said before, Dan, you get rewarded for doing that and you have a great time because of it. If you and nobody gives you any instructions. They don't say when you go in, here's how to play the game, basically.
Yeah,
you go and you talk to these people. They're going to give you some missions and you follow those instructions and it's going to lead you down a path. Nobody tells you that. You're left to discover that yourself. So if you're not going up and doing that, you could be left a little bit high and dry. And then again, like I was the first time, not that I had a bad time because I loved it both times. You know, there we are in the casino with Lashif. I was like, this doesn't get any better. But I had no idea what this whole storyline was and why is this gunfight happening.
Yeah.
If you didn't lock in with any of it, you could just be completely bewildered by everything and be like, I just don't get this. What on earth is going on, you know? And it would be very easy. And likewise, because there's so many options, there's the fear of missing out. Like when I was trying to, you know, get in there undercover styly with Spectre, and then I end up really upsetting Vesper and feeling terrible about it. I'm like, oh no, this isn't the story I wanted to do. I don't want to do this. I don't want to upset Vesper. I wish I was over there with Felix and Felix was giving me another mission and I could walk around and feel like Bond and not like I've just broken Vesper's heart and basically led to her suicide. You know what I mean? So there is that side of things as well. You know what I mean? It's very, I think it's very easy to go to something like this and have a great time, but it's also very easy to go and not have such a great time as well. What are your thoughts on that one?
It's almost like you need to see the film first and then have the sort of interactive bit afterwards. Because if you hadn't seen it first, then that would really confuse you. But it seems to make much more sense to have the film as the finale and to watch it afterward, after you sort of lift it. Yeah. But if you hadn't seen the film first, or if you didn't know it very well, it's true, you wouldn't have exactly the same experience as someone who knew it really well, because they'd be looking at all the actors and going, I know who that is. I know what that means. I know what's going to happen, roughly what's going to happen next. I know the significance of this room and that sort of thing. But these events are designed so that everyone can experience it, and no matter what their level of fan-ishness is, they still get something out of it.
Yeah, I thought.
Did you go, Brian, with anyone who wasn't quite the same level as you, fan-wise?
It was in fairness, everybody was pretty much hardcore. That we all went together, but I totally agree with what you just said there, because I think when I went second time round, I enjoyed it, substantially more than I did first time, and that was just purely because I knew what was going on more. And I think that first time, you're exactly right, Tom. Is there was too much of it where I thought, I don't really know what I'm supposed to be doing here. I'm questioning myself: am I enjoying this or not? And I came out of it and I thought, that was good, sure, yeah, of course it was good. But if I'd known more about it, I would have got more out of it. And obviously I rectified that second time round. But I think personally, I think a little bit more information should be given when you're going into it, because you get more fun out of it. You get more out of the experience if you know what it's about.
But Tom, you went with someone who wasn't quite as big a Bond fan as you are, but they still enjoy themselves, I assume.
Who is that? Are you talking about Mrs. Bond?
Yeah.
Yes. So she came. I took the missus along the second time when we had the big JBR family version, and it was somewhat like you, Dan. We went in together, and then I barely saw her the whole night. She was off doing missions, and I remember when I was skulking around the back streets of Venice, and then I came. This is about halfway through after Vesper had done her whole thing with the briefcase and buggered off, and I came out of Venice back across Miami Airport, and I just saw her come steaming out of another room right across the airport to the other side. And I was like, Jesus Christ. So I ran across and caught up with her, because we hadn't eaten before we went in, because I remember saying to her, you can get food in there and stuff, and I just assumed we'd both eat there. And I was like, do you want to grab something to eat? I'm just going to grab something quickly. And she's like, no, I'm on a mission. I've got to go. Boom. And she was gone. And then I never saw her again the whole night until the film started. So I think it's the ultimate key is you've got to go deep on the role play side of things, and if you feel, it's easy to feel a bit silly, you know what I mean? Because here we are, we're adults, and it's it's playtime is essentially what it is, isn't it? It's like what we were doing when we were, 8 years old or whatever, running around the playground, but for grown-ups, you know? And it's easy to just feel a bit stupid and be like, oh God, should I really be doing this? You know what I mean? But you just got to throw all that shit away and just jump in head first, because the actors really respond well to it, don't they? They if you go in deep, they go in deep along with it.
Before we went in, we met up with some people at a pub a little way down the road, and there was some people there that I recognized and people that I'd spoken to before, and some people that I hadn't. So AJ Chowdhury was there, Peter Brooker was there from Sailors Will Love, Calvin Dyson was there as well, and Mark O'Connell. And there was one fella. Now I feel bad because I never found out his real name. I'm not on the JBR Facebook. I should be. I know I'm not, but it could be that he is very well known to everybody else. Okay. He was 1,000,000,000% in character, to the point where he gave me his gold card. And I thought for a good few minutes that was his real name. And I started talking to him about, do you listen to JBR? Do you know about the podcast? And he said, no, I'm a tech industrialist. I don't know anything about any of this. And then I started thinking, hang on, you've got the same initials that I've got. All the initials, all the men at least had the initials JB, whatever name they chose. He'd had these gold business cards made up. And I couldn't tell when he was talking to me how much of it was genuine and how much of it was this backstory that he'd given himself. And it really freaked me out for a little bit. I couldn't quite get a handle on, am I really talking to you, or are you an actor that's been planted amongst our group to take us there? Or are you genuinely a fan? Or, what the hell's going on? It was really odd. But that told me, you have to bite this hard, and you have to really get into it. Otherwise, you're not going to get it. You're not going to have the same experience as someone who just sort of drifts through it. But then it's a metaphor for life in that sense, isn't it? There are other things happening that you don't get to have a go at. And if you don't jump in with 2 feet, then, you don't experience it the same way as someone who does.
Yeah, look at that. JBR taking it deep to a philosophical level there. I like that. That's great.
So I definitely enjoyed it. I would love to do it again now that I know more about it. And I suspect I'll be saying that about my life at age 100.
There you go.
But it was wonderful, and I wouldn't have done it without you. So thank you very much for inviting me along.
No worries, man. It's all good. I think so. We should talk a little bit about the actual screening of the film itself, which, Brian, if you didn't stick around and watch it, then you probably didn't see most of this. But so what they would do is they would have the film playing on a big screen, just like in the normal cinema. I believe I heard somebody say there were 2,000 people, as in audience members, on a typical night, or maybe it was 1,500, something like that, 1,500 to 2,000 people. So there's a lot of people in the auditorium. And then I remember asking, so when we did this sort of social media day the first time in the afternoon, we were chatting to the producers of it, and they did a little Q&A, and they were talking about how interacting with the actors is super important. And I was like, so my question was like, am I going to get to meet James Bond tonight? Like, because this is going to be fucking cool if I get to meet Bond. And they were very cagey. They were like, well, you'll see him. And that's all they would say. So I was like, all right. So long and short of it is, in that whole interactive experience, you don't see Bond. He's not a part of that. But he appears when the film starts. So the film plays, and you've got that whole... so if you imagine the very first shot of Casino, you've got that black and white shot of the building in Prague, and you see Dryden with his woolly hat on, and he's with his ferry hat on, and he kind of walks into shot, and he looks, and then he walks on. There's an actor dressed up as Dryden, and then the spotlight comes on him, and he stops and does the same thing, and then he walks on. So there's actors shadowing what's happening on screen live on stage, which it sounds really weird, and it kind of is. But I got mixed reviews from people. Some people loved it because it was such a unique thing to experience. Other people were like, I'm not sure I like that because it seemed to sort of distract from the film itself. So, for example, another one might be when Vesper is in the shower. spotlight comes up and there's a shower on stage and she's there like hugging her knees in the dress and all the rest of it. So when you see Bond, there's the fight in the pre-title sequence. He picks up the gun, turns and does the gun barrel shot. In that time, the dude's walked out onto stage. He's got his back to the audience. He picks up the gun. He spins around and aims it at the audience and shoots. Gun goes off. Theme song starts. And then he walks off into the shadows. And it has to be said, the James Bond we had that night did look a lot like Mr. Chris Wright from certain angles. I was quite enthused by that. But yeah, so then like when the game's going on between Le Chiffre and Bond at the casino table, there's a casino table up there. The same actors who are in part of the interactive bit are there. So the same Le Chiffre is sitting at the table opposite Bond and all the rest of it. So what did you make of that? Dan, you go first. What were your thoughts on that whole way of experiencing the film?
It didn't happen that often, and I don't think it really did distract from the film, not from where I was sitting anyway. And it was like when a car would be on the screen, there would be an Aston Martin drive past on the stage. If there was a fight, there would be a fight scene taking place. If there was gunfights, there would be flashes of orange light from around the screen and beside the seats that were going off as well, and explosions and things like that. But I don't think it distracted from the film too much, at least not for me. It might have done for other people.
Yeah. What about you, Brian? What did you think?
There was
I knew you had more to say there.
No, carry on. That was it.
All right, cool.
There were some bits that I thought might have distracted from the film because I sometimes didn't know which one I should have been looking at. But overall, I think it definitely enhanced it. There was one particular moment when, after the free running sequence, when Bond storms the embassy with Malaka, and then all the gunmen surround the screen. I thought that was really in, because they just came out of the audience effectively and surrounded the screen, and that was really, really good. I thought that was well done, and of course the reveal of the DB5 I thought was brilliant as well. I wasn't expecting that at all.
I just remembered the ending.
Oh right, yeah.
Do you remember the ending?
Yeah.
Oh, that was beautiful.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, the ending was.
Well, for our listeners, Dan, describe the ending. What happened at the end?
Oh, there was obviously Vesper doesn't make it in the film. Spoiler. Rather than reenacting that on the stage by having a pool of water and chucking somebody in a lift, am I right in saying a rope comes down from the ceiling and she's just sort of hoisted up? And she sort of disappears off into. That's how I remember it.
Yeah, it was. So she was suspended by a rope, but like she was. It was very ghostly looking. So she was lying flat, ropes attached to her midsection somehow, and she's sort of like the dress is all floating around. Like she looked like it was underwater, and her limbs are kind of sort of like. It's not like she's just been picked up by a rope and hoisted up into the sky. It was this weird underwatery kind of experience where her dress is kind of moving around as she's going up, and it was this like ascent into the top of the
It was really beautiful. It was really nice. And that in itself, the whole stage show part of it, aside from all the madness that we were talking about of putting together the event outside leading up to it, having to have actors on the stage do things at certain moments, to be able to not even look at the screen but know when to turn around and fire a gun. That takes a hell of a lot of practice and a hell of a lot of direction, and they got it every time. And that's a 2.5 hour film. So whoever did that part, whoever designed and directed that part, deserves a pat on the back, because it was astonishing. A hell of an achievement.
Man. Logistically, I would love to dig in and learn how they do that now, because there's so many strands and details that would have to have been absolutely perfectly executed every night to pull that off.
Like that sentence.
Indeed, or not, as the case may be. But it does make me think of, like, obviously the Skyfall screening that we went to recently, Brian. When you've got the live orchestra there, it's kind of like, I often find myself, should I be just looking at the film, or am I supposed to be looking at the orchestra? I don't know which one to lock in with, because if I just look at the film, that orchestra is so spot on. I might as well just be watching it normally. You know what I mean? It's
totally.
like there's not really any difference in the experience until you really sort of like, I don't know. It's almost like you need to split your eyes off and look at one or the other and just focus on both, really. But yeah,
The Chief could do that.
I'm sure he couldn't do. But yeah, I'm up for anything to like experience Bond in a new and different way. We've all seen those films a million times, so I'm in full support of anything that's like, let's try a little fresh, something a little bit different, and experience it in a new and fresh way.
Wasn't there some sort of explosion at some point and things fell from the sky? I seem to remember there being like
it was like a confetti bomb or something.
Yeah. There was something went off at some point in the thing, and we were all showered.
I think that might have been when he says Bond, James Bond, and then the music kicks in. I think it might have been like a boom.
That could have been it. Yes.
Yeah. But yeah.
Oh, I need to see it again.
Yeah. Well, what a cool experience, man! We're very lucky to have gone and seen that. You know, some of us went more than once, and just to sort of like be able to live that fantasy for the evening.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
definitely.
Just in it, and for them to have really pulled it off to the level that they did, and just the details and the actors, man, that they found looked so spot on. It was just mind blowing. It really was.
It was amazing. I hope we haven't spoiled it for anyone if it does happen again. If the organisers are listening, you need to know that we're doing this out of love, because we can't hold this in any further. We have to tell everybody about what an amazing event this is. As it is, we've only described what we saw, and as Brian said, as you both said, you can go there 50 times and never have the same experience. So there will be bits that we didn't see that we're not spoiling. So
absolutely,
we're only really showing the bits that the sort of 10%, 20% of the whole thing that we saw. There was a hell of a lot more going on in that world.
Exactly that. And like I say, I went twice, and I could go again 10 more times, follow different threads, and have a totally different experience. And all the people I spoke to who were with that night, that was one of the most exciting bits, was the excited conversation afterwards, when everybody's, you know, outside being like, what happened to you? Oh, you saw that person. I never saw that person. Shit. And blah, blah, blah. And you almost need to, if you were to buy tickets to Secret Cinema, you almost need to buy 3, 4, or 5 nights, because the first time there were some characters I didn't even see. I never saw M. I never saw the M the second time. First time I never saw Solange. I never saw Yusuf. There was loads of them that I didn't even see. I didn't even come into contact with them, you know.
We saw Solange to the point where once she'd walked past us, we couldn't see anyone else. She was the most astonishing bit of casting. Yeah. It was like, I don't know, I can't remember if it was me or Mark. Well, one of us looked at her and said, is that really her? I can't remember if it was me that said it or if it was Mark that said it, and that tells you how lost in the moment I was. But it was an astonishing bit of casting. They'd done very, very well there.
Yeah, I remember them telling us beforehand that the first time they did it, they did like a screening for Eon and all those kind of people, and so they all went to see. And they actually had the real Malacca. So they had Sebastian Foucan doing all so when you're watching the film and they're doing the whole free running sequence, they had, I think that night during that bit, they had like 3 or 4 different Malaccas all doing these stunts. Like the light would come up over here and he's jumping off this thing and running around, and then the light would instantly come up over here and there's another Malacca dressed exactly the same, obviously, jumping off of this thing or climbing up here and all the rest of it. And so they had the actual Sebastian Foucan doing that on that night for those things. And so that was
didn't know that.
Special.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Wow.
I wish he was there all night, but obviously he's not going to be there every single night.
I'd love for another one to happen. You know, obviously a different film. I think, you know, to build on this one as a starting point and come up with another one would be fantastic.
Yeah, I mean,
it was in the box office top 10 for a good 2 or 3 months, and that is a good sign. Obviously it's 30, 40, 50 quid a ticket. I don't know what it was, but that helped keep it, you know, in the box office top 10. So obviously it did do quite well, even though there weren't that many events over that time. But yeah, these have a reputation now, and there's no way they wouldn't do another one in the future. Whether it's Bond, I don't know, but God, I hope it is.
Yeah, man. What a cool experience. It was the business. But yeah, everybody I spoke to, I don't say everybody because there were a few people. I know Chris didn't have the best time when he went because he was one of those that wasn't quite sure. Because what the part of it is before you go in, you don't want anybody to tell you anything, and the less you do know, the better. And he was one of those that, like he does with his Bond films, he likes to go in blank, not knowing anything. And I think he struggled to sort of get like, what am I supposed to be doing? Like, and it didn't quite lock in. Mm-hmm. So he was like, I enjoyed it, but I was a bit confused by the whole thing, and I didn't really get the whole experience. But the majority of people were just like bubbling with excitement of just like the craziness of what they'd experienced, talking to certain actors and all the rest of it. Yeah, man, it was the business.
Yeah, if there's anybody listening that has done any of the other ones, like the Star Wars ones, or the Handmaiden one, I'd be very interested to know what was happening in that one. So yeah, I'm sure you can get in touch with us somehow.
Speaking,
let us know what it was all about.
I have a funny story that happened to my missus and I. So we went in our travels. I think it's about 18 months ago, we went to Vietnam and we went to Ha Long Bay because I thought Bond location, got to go there. And we did this sort of like cruise, like a 1-day cruise on this boat. And it was, you'd get on there first thing in the morning and cruise around, loads of photo opportunities and stop offs and stuff. And then there was like meals throughout the day and all the rest of it. And yeah, so in the evening, it was an overnight thing, I remember. So we had a cabin and we stayed the night and then cruised back the next morning. That was it. And when I say it was a small boat, so it's not like a cruise ship like with thousands of people on it. There was probably, I would have wagered, somewhere between 15 and 20 other passengers on the ship, mostly couples, right? And so I'm thinking, okay, well, this is the bit where Tomorrow Never Dies was doubling for this here, and I'm trying to work out where Pierce would have been. And then we sit down for the evening meal, and they're like, "Oh, we're going to do a screening tonight. This is one of our a film that's very important to us, but be careful because it's just a little warning. It is suitable for adults only, right?" And I'm like, "All right, what is this fucking film?" So we're all sitting down to dinner, and it was a film called The Lovers, right? Which I remember being controversial back in the day. It came out in like the 90s, and it was filmed in that area, which is why they wanted to show it. But it was basically 2 hours of relentless shagging on screen. And it was just the most inappropriate film I think you could possibly put on for a meal on a boat in Palm Bay. And we're looking around, and everybody's just sort of sharing these awkward little glances at each other, like, "Why are they playing it?" Like, obviously they were playing it because it was filmed locally, but like it was just not dinner viewing. You know what I mean?
No, it wasn't polite dinner conversation. No,
it certainly wasn't. No, absolutely not. But yeah, I digress.
Yes.
But there we go. So I think that rounds out our Secret Cinema coverage, doesn't it? Is there anything else? Any other stories that you've got? Anything else you want to say about Secret Cinema before we go for the day?
I did have a list of things. There was the car outside, which I didn't mention. That when you go out, when you go into the location, the big studio, there was a big sort of area outside with a band playing and lots of music, and there was a big silver gun barrel for you to stand in and take your picture. I think you had a picture, Tom, taken.
Yeah.
And there was under a sort of behind a plexiglass screen, there was the silhouette of an Aston Martin, and it was under a tarpaulin or under a sort of a sheet, and you couldn't see it, but you kind of knew what it was going to be. People who'd seen the film knew what that was, and we thought there must be some moment where that's going to be revealed. As it turned out, it's not revealed until you come out again after 3-4 hours later. Afterwards, you come back out. The car is still there behind this screen. You can't touch it, but they've removed the tarpaulin, and you see that it is completely smashed up, just like it is in the film. And that was a lovely little detail. I don't know where they got that from, whether that was the actual car itself or whether they'd got hold of Aston Martin and smashed it up for that event. I can't imagine that's the case. But that was a nice little event. That was a nice little moment that I really liked as well.
Yeah, that was
and
a
also,
lovely little touch, wasn't it? Like one of those attention to detail things that I would wager that at least half of that audience never really noticed that detail on the way out.
No, that's the sort of thing about this whole event. There was so much detail in there. Some of it was so small that it would have gone unnoticed by most people. But if you're the one person that spots it, you go, "Oh, that's great!" It's like it's done just for you. And that's what I loved about this event. And you can only applaud the people that put this together, because they're even bigger nerds than we are.
Big time.
Yeah, definitely.
It is possible. It must be.
Indeed. All right, then. So this is JBR, Secret Cinema Special Edition, signing off for the day. I've been Tom Sears.
I've been Brian Dobson.
And I've been Dan Gale.
Beautiful. And you've both done it very well. Being Brian Dobson and Dan Gale, you've done very good jobs at it. Very good. And James Bond Radio will return next week. We will see you then. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Hope you enjoyed the show. Good night.